As the political season heats up in Jamaica with a general election any day now, we are meeting the candidates right here on the Trailblazers with Tamara TV. Get to know your candidates from both sides of the political divide. What is their mission? What is their objective? And why do they think their party will be victorious? Hi, Damion. Welcome. It's not your first time here on the Trailblazers platform, but definitely interesting times, exciting times ahead with an election any day now. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling excited. There's a natural energy that comes with that anticipation, a jolt in adrenaline, and we're looking forward to a PNP victory in the upcoming election. So we're excited.
And you've been in politics pretty much from you were very young, like a student. It's literally in your blood. Would you say it's like a calling for you?
Not really. I've been in representation from I was a student, so university politics. Um, but sometimes you just go towards what your talents lead to. I'm not sure if it's a calling, but I enjoy doing it and I enjoy the results that can come from political participation. So, yeah.
So there's no like great reason as to why you've done this or why you've been doing this all these years.
Well, sometimes when people make personal decisions as it relates to what they want to see for their own country, they misconstrue it as God's duty to them. And that's what a calling is. A God would have to call you to do something. Um, you should leave that designation to God to tell you if it was a calling, but it is something that I have decided to do because I feel that I can contribute towards the general improvement of the nation. But I don't I don't diminish it to saying that God touched my life to do it.
Okay. The last election, when you ran against Anne-Marie Vaz, you lost. And some say that despite her national popularity, it didn't translate to the polls. What would you have to say to this?
Those people have been incorrect. Every time that I ran an election, which is twice, I've broken the record, the PNP record. I still hold the PNP record for East Rural St Andrew. No one has surpassed the numbers that I achieved. And I hold the PNP record for East Portland. No one has ever gotten nor surpassed the numbers that I achieved. That by election, the PNP was at its lowest, and we were running against a government. It's very difficult to win a by-election against a government. So we're one for one, and we expect to be two for three in the next election.
And that's of course with Northwest St Katherine. Of course, you're wearing your shirts.
Yeah, yeah,
What do
yeah.
you think of your prospects there? Because you've been obviously all of the politicians busy campaigning. What's your prospects looking like for Northwest St Katherine?
Well, it's very high. I believe that we should be coming home with a high margin of victory, but you never leave anything to chance. You continue to campaign until the end of polls at 5. So we believe that we have a very good chance in Northwest St. Catherine. It's a place that has welcomed me greatly, and I look forward to representing them.
Based on what you've done in the past, probably mistakes made, are you doing anything differently this time on the campaign trail?
Not really. I've decided not to mention my opponent. That has been a strategy of the JLP to be the first to complain, but also the first to violate. So we have been seeing the vases, for example, suggesting that playing Chichiman's song on the platform to indicate or spread a rumor against the PNP candidate. They did that in my time as well. But whenever you respond, they run to the media, some of whom they have in their pockets. So I just decided this time to focus on the campaign on myself. And in spite of the opponent having multiple occasions been been derogatory towards me, I've just decided not to participate. But it's not based on a mistake. It's based on an analysis of the playing field and how the JLP operates.
And so do you think Northwest St. Catherine is home for you now? Because there are some that say that Damion Crawford, that they keep moving in different places. Do you think this is where you feel comfortable now?
Well, I don't know where the some get that from. I mean, there's always 200,000 people in Jamaica that are biased towards the JLP and will say anything that comes to their mind. Um, this is the first time I've been able to choose a seat. I've never had the opportunity to choose a seat before. Let us not forget that in 2011, I was a last minute candidate, having had the JLP place Andrew Holness as their leader and say young people time after they defended Dodos to the point that Prime Minister Bruce Golding had to resign. And at that time, the PNP asked me, as the face of the PNP's young people, to run in that election. I didn't choose that seat. And then let us not forget that the MP for Portland was murdered. Thereafter, the person who committed the murder, who was accused, was represented by one of the most expensive lawyers in Jamaica, Peter Champagne, who have close relations to some politicians. And thereafter, this accused individual disappeared from court and have still not been found or carried to justice. When the MP was murdered, the PNP indicated that my public quote unquote popularity suggested that I was the best one able to run in that election. Also, the norm is that normally, for example, when I went to East Rural St Andrew, we were 7 points behind. We ended up winning. And when I went to East Portland, we were 11 points behind. We ended up 1 point behind. So the fact of the matter is that I've never been given the opportunity to select a seat. In East Portland, persons unwilling to be truthful would forget that COVID came immediately after. And I had a business that supplied hotels. So I found it financially incapable to continue politically because we don't get funded to run in a seat. You fund yourself. And so after the COVID came, I couldn't sustain two houses, which was what Portland would have needed because I didn't live in Portland, nor was it close to Kingston. And I couldn't sustain a campaign because the business I had was 100% hotel supply. So therefore, I withdrew from Portland, and the party had to put a new candidate. Rightfully, it couldn't have been reserved for me until I recovered financially. But East Portland was, I mean, I'll never forget how energized they were and how hard they worked, and by extension, I'll always love the people in East Portland. And East Rural gave me my first opportunity. It caused for me to be the first person with locks to be in Parliament, and I'll always remember that. So now that I was asked which seat I would want to represent, I chose East, Northwest St Katherine, and that's because I think that they match my opinion of farming as a reasonable opportunity, my opinion of effort and work, and my opinion of education is a highly educated constituency. Many engineers, etc., because of bauxite and because of Worthy Park, um, highly qualified people. So um, those who know the truth would know that I have never been able to choose a seat until now. And I think I chose a seat that matched me well. So there were arranged marriages for the first two times, and now I propose for the third time and hopefully the final time.
Fantastic. So you mentioned a couple areas just now. You mentioned in terms of farming, and of course, you've always been big on education. Would you say
Mm.
that those are two of your, top priority areas in Northwest St. Catherine? And what would be actually your three main areas that you're focusing on?
Well, I have a 40-page manifesto, so it's hard to say is it too off. We believe to organize the communities and to organize it around households. So we're organizing the constituency around communities, which are clusters, and we're organizing the communities around household. We're targeting 1 degree per household under the 321 program, and we're targeting one business per household under the Freedom program. Those are two central cogs. And then, of course, we're looking at health and we're looking at infrastructure. Infrastructure expanded from just the comfort of travel, but more importantly, as it relates to the capacity for service, ambulance service, fire service, police service, because a lot of life and property are at risk and limb because of the access from public services such as ambulance and fire. And so from an infrastructure standpoint, we'll be ranking those and improving that infrastructure access. But we're looking at businesses, and within that business component, agriculture is one consideration. So we want to have 1,000 lots to lease because we have lands available of 3 to 5 acres, and families will be able to send in their proposals. We have already identified contracts for pepper, contracts for sorrel, and contracts for pineapple and callaloo. So we have already identified those. We're looking at honey. We have a program we call Bees for Honeys. It's for single mothers to do honey farming on their roof or in their backyard because they have to be home most of the time, but they still have to earn. And especially now that grandmothers are still being fully employed, they have nobody to leave the child with, and it has delayed their re-entry into the job market. So we're looking at some of those things as well. But yeah, education is a central focus. We want 1 degree per household. And that's why we have the literacy programs. We have the night school. We have the CXC classes, CXC math classes, for which I still teach. Um, that's why we help them with PEP for them to get their school of choice. And we're moving with those things. But we still have other businesses like soap making, furniture making, designs, and the general PNP policy of having 1 meal per child in school would create great opportunities for contract farming. And so those are the things that we're kind of just pushing.
Awesome. And you mentioned earlier as well, in terms of that period of time when you had stepped away from representational politics. What did you learn during this time, both professionally and also personally? And what sort of gave you that push, that impetus to return?
Well, I'd always considered returning. As I said, COVID was the influence. But I then remember that I wasn't fully separated. I was in the Senate thereafter. So I was still in the Senate at that time. And as it became closer and closer to elections, we had to re-engage from a representation standpoint. We thought that the JLP would have called the election a little earlier, but I don't know, would have said them coward like dog, you know. So they're not really able to call the election because tomorrow is always a better day to lose. And so that delay has had us in the campaign field for a while. But I've always, once at UA, I saw the impact that coordinating people could have. And I've always been stuck to that to say if I can organize people satisfactorily, the change can be extreme. And I've been committed to that. So politics is the effort of organizing people so that they can get the country that they deserve. And to that extent, I re-entered representation politics. But I was never fully separated. Remember, I was vice president of the party and stuff like that.
And you just mentioned that the JLP, quote unquote, to quote you, is coward like dog, and also the
Mm.
fact that tomorrow is another day to lose.
It's a better day to
Is
lose.
a better day to lose. Yes, let me quote you accurately. So
Yeah.
you feel confident that the PNP will win. However, given the fact that Jamaica, the JLP, has been tooting much success in terms of crime being lowered, upgraded travel advisory just this week at the time of recording, July 2025, in terms of being removed from the EU watch list, wouldn't you
Yeah.
say that based on what they're touting as their, recent successes for Jamaica, that this will lead to continuity for the voters as opposed to time come and going with the PNP?
No, because what they're touting is actually only for those who are incapable to understand. For example, this 9 years of one of the highest average years of criminal activity. So that isn't absorbed by saying that there's a reduction in the last 3 months of the 9 year. You have had a full term. When I mark in a paper, I don't mark one question, I mark all questions. And when I'm giving a end of the year average, I give the average for all the tests that they have done. So they have failed 8.5 years out of the test and seek to suggest that the last year of reasonable results should be used to negate the 8.5 years that they have failed, for which they were committed to imprisoning multiple young men simply because of the address that they had and the levels of income that they earn. So we don't believe that they are performed satisfactorily for the people. Additionally, you'll never believe or hear from me that an analysis is binary. You don't have to get zero to fail. So of course I can find some things that the JP done that I say, oh yeah, I like that, or that is a good thing for the country, but not sufficient for them to be returned. And then when you add to that, just how corrupt they have been is sufficient reason for what would you call disqualification. I don't even believe that a lot of them will survive with their freedom for the next 3 years, because every minute I hear the Integrity Commission calling for another group. They started with 6 and then it be 8 and now it is 10. It's almost as if they're saying one by one they should come up the hill. So the truth of the matter is that the JLP is undeserving of further conversation and consideration, in my opinion. The PNP believes that our history of standing for the people and giving opportunity for the masses should take us over the thing. And the polls have been showing that for the last 2 years, the JLP has never been in front. So we're confident of victory.
And speaking of one by one coming up the hill, obviously one of
Mm.
those trending sounds on TikTok there. You are very much in tuned, and you're also someone who is not afraid to speak their mind, quite unfiltered at times, some would say. Do you think
Yeah.
that has negatively impacted Damion Crawford's political career, or it sort of
Absolutely.
helped in terms of your own popularity?
Yeah, the two things can be true at the same time. For those who appreciate that, it has helped. And for those who like because they would prefer lies for peace, they'll say no. For example, the government has put forward a teacher's bill that suggests the teacher should be competent to teach. I don't see why it's above our ability, therefore, to have a conversation on competent to lead. So if you have people who are dunce, it should be highlighted that they're incompetent from a knowledge standpoint, an exposure standpoint, from a way of thinking standpoint, to make adequate policies. So, I mean, the truth shall set you free, as far as I'm concerned. And most of what I've said, I've not been proven to be untruthful, even if they feel like it should have been reserved to whispers. It have not been proven to be untruthful. Who may say dunce are dunce, and who may say are incapable are generally incapable.
Have you done or said anything in your political career that looking back you regret?
Yeah, the one thing is when I said dirty labor, right? And at the time, I never had a issue with it. I'm not a what would I say? I'm not a separatist as it relates to how strongly I feel. My uncle is a JLP person, and I'm very good friends with a lot of them. But it is in the same way, and JLP call himself dirty labor, right, as well. But in the same way that black people call themselves the N-word in the US, but fine offense when white people do it. I can imagine it is in the same way that a JLP people person may find offense if a PNP person call them a dirty labor, right? And that's the only time I've ever apologized for something that I've said. Um, so in hindsight, I shouldn't have said that. The other things I've analyzed to see if the outcome was positive or negative, and I've decided to either continue or change based on the outcome because I said it for desired outcomes. I can't just say, oh, I'm gonna say it even if it don't carry the desired outcome. But as it relates to regret, no, only the dirty labor I think that I learned later say, oh, I'm gonna see how this could have violated a person.
Yes. A lot of young people really rally towards you, Damian. But at the same time, do you think the Gen Zs, the millennials, the younger millennials, I would say, do you think have become disillusioned with politics?
Not overly. 30% of people, 40% of people vote. So if we extend that to any group of people, it's going to be the same. And the vast majority of Jamaicans don't participate. So I think that the 60s, 70s, 80s, people bought into something. They believed into something. And it is more the politics that have changed than the young people. There's nothing that they're buying into. Nobody now sell nothing that makes sense. So if you're not selling me something where me can buy into, believe and be hopeful, and you're generally coming with disinformation with people who are unethical, we are known to be unethical, known to be immoral, known to be incompetent, then why should I rally? We have come from times that you had Michael Manley and Norman Manley and Edward Seaga that were known to be competent, even if you disagreed with them. When I see what Edward Seaga designed in Tivoli Garden as what a community should be, with all the sports, with all the activities and supporting things around it, you can see a principle. When I say Andrew just going around and taking picture with one house, you can see incompetence. So yeah, the people don't have nothing to bind to. So I guess that's why them just can't be bothered. So I think it's the politics that have changed.
And what does a PNP-led government, or what does a Damion Crawford in his capacity as a strong member of the party and intends to do to change that narrative and to win over more youths?
The PNP's focus has never been age specific. It has always been for income poor individuals. And the PNP's focus have also been on the measure of the Human Development Index, while the JLP focus have been on the measure of GDP. I think that's a fundamental difference between the two. The JLP celebrates growth, while the PNP celebrates development. And the reality is that growth can happen without development, but development can't happen without growth. And so when you look at the literacy, when you look at the education, when you look at the university access, when you look at housing access, when you look at small business development and earning through profits, the PNP has always been at the forefront of those policies. No reasonable person can say the JLP competes. In housing, for example, where's their Portmore? Where's their Harborview? Where's their Mona? You understand me? They don't have that thing. Where's their land for the landless? Where's their Operation Pride? They don't have that. As it relates to assistance for the dependent, where's their PATH program? But they can't find similar activities. Where's their JUTC? I see them talk about bus. We are the ones that established JUTC. Coming again, I see they're talking when it comes to education, we moved university access from 9% to 21%. It has only moved 1% since that to 22%. They have never been. We had free education up to university level. We have built the most schools in Jamaica. They can't compete when it comes to education. Very few people know that in 2015, 5 subjects, including math and English, was 27%. It's now at 18%. They have diminished that by 11 percentage points. That's almost 40% the decrease under the JLP. So there are areas that were the ones that started NHT, were the ones that started the Tourism Enhancement Fund, were the ones that brought in the Spanish hotel investment. They don't have anything to compare. The only thing I can give to JLP as something that is a reasonable, 2 things. They started the NIS and they started Heart Trust. But nothing else is there that they can claim. So even this administration can only claim subjective, anecdotal. Oh, look at the economy, it's improving. Every time that you say the economy is improving until the teachers are to be paid, and then you say they can't afford it, or until hospital beds are to be bought, and then you say you can't buy it, or until roads are to be fixed, and then you say you can't fix it. So what kind of father can come and say, oh yes, you know, I'm good financially, but the child don't get to go to school, or the parent don't get to eat? So the evidence of this great is not being shown. It is really just a book evidence of being great. You understand what I'm saying? And the JLP generally, I mean, we have had a reduction in literacy from 82% to 64%, 4th grade literacy. And with that reduction, the stupidity of the proposals that they put forward only can catch those who are in the 40% that can read, because those who can read will say this don't make no sense. So when you look at this to say, oh, we're going to introduce reading. Reading is a full component. You just don't name reading, you name language arts. So therefore, because reading is incorporated under language arts, saying you're going to now name it reading don't make sense. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. And then you come and say, oh, and by the way, we're going to incorporate it into the PEP. So at the 6th grade PEP, they're going to also do literacy tests. What sense that makes? The results for PEP comes out 2 weeks before school ends. So what would be the remediation effort? That's too ridiculous. You have a test at 4th grade, and the person should either get intervention from 4th grade, or the person move on because they have been proven able. You understand? So generally, I think that because of our focus on the Human Development Index, and because that have a futuristic development is in the future, is a movement from a state to an improved state in the future. I think that the young people can buy into that. But we have never been separatists to say, oh, this is a young people party or an old people party. And the PNP has always been a community party for the group. The JLP has always been an individualistic party. So the fraternal relationship, the party relationships that exist, the PNP have a party relationships with the Democratic Party in the United States. The JLP have a relationship with the Republican Party, Donald Trump's party, because they are individualistic kind of mindset. Yo, it's me, my. The PNP has always been ours, and ours would include young people and middle-aged people and old people. You understand? Because the community is important to the PNP. So we have never been one for to say, yo, oh, for you, for you, for you, and not for us.
And you're currently opposition spokesman on education. Should the PNP win, is that the ministerial seat you're eyeing, or maybe tourism, which you served in the past? Any specifics?
Oh yeah, for sure, education. I've always been committed to that. I think that has been assigned to my brand for the longest time. I've never, from university days, I've been a thing. I believe that's the answer for all things. That's why I promote 1 degree per household. They sent Daryl Vaz to speak on it. Daryl Vaz can't count past 10, so I don't know how I'm going to 1 million. That's why I call him bucket stopper bars. They have to use like these bucket stoppers to count to 20. So I have to say 11, 12, 13, and 14, lick him chest when him reach 9. So I don't know how them percent Daryl Vaz will come talk about costing. But the JLP knows the cost of everything and the value of nothing. We propose 1 degree per household. And the detractor will say, no, no, you have to talk about literacy. How do you get into a degree if you're not literate? It is a fait accompli. You assume that to be true. No, what about CXE? How do you get into, you have to matriculate with CXEs. So the 1 degree per household is because we have recognized that the households with degrees don't experience the vast negatives of the society, such as the households with degrees are less likely to participate in crime. The households with degrees are less likely to have health issues that they can't afford healthcare. The household with degrees are less likely to have inadequate housing. The household with degrees are less likely to have illiterate children. The household with degrees are less likely to suffer from malnutrition and food insecurity. So the general reality is that the households with degrees have been able to escape the maladies, the negatives of our society. Therefore, it would be wise for us to give all households a degree to make that be our objective. But because these people want people to bathe them dog and clean them toilet, they don't want that reality. They resist it, refuse it. You see, when COVID ended, the World Bank said that we needed $4 billion for learning loss. The JP said they couldn't afford it. Now they're affording $1 billion for buying votes under quote unquote solidarity program. What is that program? Just $20,000 to 50,000 people because we're on the verge of the election. The people have to look at that and say, why would I sacrifice my child for $20,000? These are realities that nobody wants to talk about.
But in the game of politics, if PNP was in power, wouldn't you have perhaps done the same thing?
Well, we can look into history because we never just start politics. Politics have been around for a very long time. In fact, we'd have had this from 1944, we had universal adult suffrage. And since 1962, we have been independent. If I should do the maths, 40 years would carry me to 2002, 60 years would carry me to 2022. So we're about 63 years. Now, if we're at all of 63 years, you go back to your Google, to your everything and tell me when was the time that a government bought votes on TV? You see? I never heard of that. Now, there'll be some time where you say, yo, me go fix the road there, make the people them happy. There have been some times that you say that, let me fast track the project there, right? But the first time I saw government buy votes directly was a 60-something billion dollar bushing program when Holness was running his first local government. And then this $1 billion, 60-something, yeah, was it million or I don't want to say billion, it was millions. I have to review that 60 something, but it was a lot. And then to come and say that they're giving away $1 billion just for giveaway's sake. And it's being given away through their members of parliament, who they have 49 for the most case. Some of it is being given away through application for which they have your data. And then more than likely having utilized their data, them try to change the election. I've never seen such abuse of of democracy. I've never seen the municipality take down advertisement boards while millions of other advertisement boards are for parties and everything, them take down the opposition advertisement boards. I've never seen that. So when a person says the opposition would do the same thing, the opposition have many chances to have done the same thing. We didn't. We didn't. So by extension, it's like a lady got to her ex-husband, having left him for a stupid man, and then the stupid man beat her. And when him say, why allow the man to beat you? She said, you'd have done the same thing. We were together for 20 years and I didn't. So therefore, how it come to send me that beat you when I didn't? The facts should mean something. So no, the opposition would not have done the same thing.
When all is said and done, though, Damion, as the time is winding down in the political season, can Mark Golding beat Andrew Holness?
I don't care if Mark Golding can beat Andrew Holness because it is not a presidential election. Can the PNP beat the JLP? Yes. 100% yes. Can Damion Crawford beat Darrell Vaz? It don't matter. If me am Darrell Vaz, I do maths, 100% we are going to beat him. Because he can't do maths. Can't count.
You seem to have a thing against Vaz.
Because him dunce. Dunce didn't hurt my feelings.
This is public, by the way.
Yeah, him dunce. Darrell dunce. Everybody know.
I feel like the two of you are actually friends and you're just
Yeah,
teasing
man, me and him are virgin. But that don't mean that we can't say dance. That's why I know. Me see him account back stop already.
All right, back to back to the seriousness of it all, though.
I see you're in dance for
But
true.
you mentioned on a previous interview right here that your dad said to you years ago when you were a child that he saw you as being prime minister one day. Now, you're still relatively young, especially in the world of politics. You have many, 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 many years ahead of you. Is that something that a future Damion still sees on the horizon?
I would hope so, but it's not that time. At this time is to make sure Mark Golding gets it. And sometimes when you run in too much different races, you're not focused on the race at hand. The race at hand now is to give a person that I believe is anti-corruption. That's a big problem in Jamaica that must be solved at this particular point in time. I think these guys have changed the game of politics by how corrupt they have been and how public that expectation now has become. I think that Mark Golding is best positioned because he doesn't need it, first of all, because he has displayed affinity to truth to get it. And by extension, I'm focused on that. Now, if I should ever receive an opportunity to be a minister of education, I mean, prime minister is the least of the rewards that I will receive after me done fix it so beautifully. You understand? Your children will be spending me on money because I'll be a hero after that. So, I mean, some of the times you just take the opportunity you get, do what you need to do, and the people will reward you satisfactorily. So, my focus now is winning the election, getting an opportunity to take education out of the malaise that it has, make people start naming them children after me, because of the work that I've done. And then, everybody middle name one Damion after a while. And then they will reward me if I do the work.
If the PNP doesn't pull through in this upcoming election, what do you think will be the party's next steps?
I don't know. I don't even think of that because it's almost impossible. You know? I think the people have made up their mind against the JLP. So to go into a race and say, oh, if me pull up, what is my next step? Or if we not win, what is my next step? That would be a crazy athlete. You understand? You put in what are the steps to the race. So this is what are our before steps. Our before steps is doing our canvassing, is doing our campaigning, is putting our ideas together. That's our before steps. When the result comes, if it is negative by some chicanery or some craziness, if Darrell is the one counting up the ballots and by extension him never sees a PNP get enough than JLP, then maybe, but generally I don't see it possible for that to happen before I go into the competition. When it finish, God forbid that happen, we look again and see where we're at.
And you're quite confident. Give me a number. Election night after the results
Um,
are counted. How much seats
that's
for
not that's
PNP?
I don't sit in the you'd have to ask like the general secretary because I don't sit in the area to see all the information. So I'm really using anecdotal facts. For example, the PMP's base is more excited. That is clear and obvious. So much so that the JLP has to disguise their meetings as workers' meetings. Why would the Prime Minister be going to workers' meeting? And then why would the worker meeting be broadcasted publicly? A workers' meeting is always private because they're discussing strategy. But they are so afraid of their numbers that them say we're going to a workers' meeting and have it in a little schoolroom. We're going brawling in the town square, full up, ram. You understand? Whenever there was two times them bright up themselves and come on the same community on the same day. One of them they had to cancel, the next one they were embarrassed. So the PNP is more excited, energized, mobilized. That's important to the outcome of election. Um, the second thing is the fact that them can't call the election shows that their numbers don't satisfy them. By now, they should have called the election. For example, the benefit of surprise has been removed because everybody knows that 2 months left. Now the politicians, the prime ministers used to have that benefit of surprise. Say, oh, we're not sure when to take a call, and then he calls it. He has lost that benefit because every time he looks at his numbers, it look less and less and less. You know, he thought that he had a little opportunity. Then the FID Dennis Strong issue came up. He's like, oh my God. He thought that he had a thing. Then integrity said, oh, we have two more for illicit enrichment, not for not reporting on time or for illicit enrichment, becoming rich on the backs of the people. You understand? Then comes again, oh yes, and we go buy some bus, and then the people recognize that there's new buses are cheaper. So every time that them think that they have a window, the truth have, handicapped them. And by extension, they suck.
Final question, what's your message to the people of Jamaica at this time as we head into we're already in a highly political season. So as we are ready for elections any day now.
Well, objective measures would prove that the JLP has failed. An historical basis will prove that the PNP is for the people. When you look at health, for example, any objective measure will show that health has failed. Cornwall region has still not been done almost 7 years after it was promised to be done, and 20 billion more than it was said to be spent. When you look at security, as I said, yes, this year we have seen reductions, but we have seen reductions before in 2007. The lowest year that we have had for the last 5 years, four of them is the PNP. So in the last, so the lowest five of the last 13 years, four of them is under the People's National Party. Nine of the highest years in the last 13 years have been under the Jamaica Labour Party. So 1 year can solve that, especially with the assumption that we have not solved the root cause, but have really just created fear through direct prosecution of some of these individuals. When you look at infrastructure, the roads, people say, oh, well, the roads were always bad. Well, carry back your memory to if it was this bad. I don't remember it being this bad. Carry back your memory to your road if it was always like this. I don't remember my road always being like this. So they have failed there. They like to say things like unemployment is low, but they don't tell you 670,000 people have removed themselves from seeking a job, not interested in working. And that isn't counted as unemployed because they're not looking for a job. That's 670,000 people, almost a quarter of the population. And remember, children don't count in that. So when you look at all of these things, you can see that holes are being born. When you look at education, 82% are not getting the minimum standard, which is 5 subjects, including math and English. That's a GED. 13,000 are not proficient at 6th grade level. They have reduced from 82% to 64% literacy. These are reasons for, for each category that you analyze. Tourism is down, which nobody wants to report. but our rivals are also down. And they find a reason to blame everything as if nothing happened when the PNP was in power. I don't see any avenue for which the JLP deserve 3 terms. I don't see any basis. If you look at the road to Port to St. Thomas, it's one of the most disrespectful infrastructural program that we have ever seen. And then the things that they're opening don't even ready to be open. But at the last moment, the St. Thomas thing, which is a good thing, don't even have a sewage contract in place.
The Morant Bay Urban Center. But
The
the
urban
was the
center.
St. Thomas was fixed.
Huh? No,
Was the road?
it is to be fixed, but done, not near done. You understand? Water is going in the people yard. No dust is killing them. It just has been a disrespectful implementation, a lack of consideration. Um, Compare that to when we did Highway 2000, and you see that we're just a better government. So I can't find any area that I believe the JLP is exponentially and objectively better than the PNP. I can't find an area. And by extension, I believe the PNP should be in charge of our policies. A lot of these people who are in the JLP, they're not in parliament to make laws. They're out in government to break laws, and that's a difference.
Not in parliament to make laws, but to break laws. Interesting. Thank you so much, Damion.
All right, thank you.